Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are live, so we wanted to welcome you this evening to our presentation. Before we get started, I'm just going to introduce myself really quickly as the moderator. My name is Jennifer Stroh. I am one of the college counselors at Barrington High School. And just to do a few housekeeping items before we jump into our presentation, please know that we do have a question and answer button on the screen. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to do that at any time. Your camera and microphone are turned off, so the panelists cannot hear or see you. This is just one of the many sessions that are happening, so please be sure to check out the full schedule at IACAC.org. And then this presentation is being recorded and will be available in about a week at that same website, IACAC.org. So I'd like to turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you very much. And let's get the share screen thing going on here. There we go. My name's Andrew Lally. I'm the Associate Director for Fine Arts Admissions at Webster University. I'm joined by two colleagues from schools there in Chicago, and I'll let them go ahead and introduce themselves. Tracy, you can go ahead.
Great. Hello, good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world right now. I'm Tracy Durson, the Director of Admissions from the Theater School at DePaul University, and I'm going to pop this over to Becca.
Hello, everyone. My name is Becca Skura. I am the Theater Admission Counselor at Roosevelt University's Chicago College of Performing Arts.
Excellent. So just want to give you an idea of what we're going to accomplish here in the next 44 minutes or so. The one thing we do want to make sure we are going to provide some pretty comprehensive details about our individual institutions, because our three institutions are all a little bit different, but one thing that we all have is we're all fairly selective, and we all place pretty strong emphasis on the performing arts and the theater arts. So we are going to go through each of our schools in detail. Then we're going to have a panel discussion about some of the topics that we covered or perhaps didn't cover. And then lastly, we'll go to Q&A. And a reminder, the way you interact with us to ask us questions is through the Q&A box. You'll see that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. So that is the way you can do it. You can ask questions anytime throughout this process, and we'll be sure to answer those one way or another, make sure we get the information that you need. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy, who's going to tell us about the theater school at DePaul.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andrew. Great. So we're each going to take just a short amount of minutes to share information about our programs as a whole, to give you a better framework for, how to ask questions and so on and so forth. So to give you a brief overview of the theater school at DePaul, we do consider ourselves to be a conservatory within DePaul University. And what that means essentially is that we offer very highly specialized programs that are all BFAs, and we have kind of some components and ways that we break down or create this conservatory environment. So when we're looking at the different majors that we have available to our students and looking at those BFAs, we put them into three categories or three sort of umbrella areas. We have our performance area, which houses our acting program. We don't offer a musical theater degree at DePaul, but we do musical theater training within our acting program. So I think for students who really want to focus their core training on acting for the 4 years that they're here and supplement the musical theater training, this is a great option for you. We have our design tech areas, which include our costume design, costume technology, lighting design, scene design, sound design, stage management, projection design, theater technology, and wig and makeup design and technology. And then we have what we call our theater studies areas, which include comedy arts, playwriting, dramaturgy and criticism, theater arts, and theater management. So when you're looking at that list, it's like, whew, there's so much stuff involved in there. There's so many different options. But if there are certain programs in there that really resonate with you, that's a good indication that the BFA track may be great for you. Your curriculum is pretty heavily in the area that you're going to study. So the way that we break it down is in the conservatory for us is about 80% of your curriculum is going to be theater-based curriculum, and the other 20% is going to be the required general studies curriculum. So you still are getting that liberal studies foundation while having a hyper-focused training in those particular areas. We don't offer a BA in theater, so I think that's really important as you're exploring programs, and I also think there's a lot of value in applying to both BA and BFA programs when you're going through this process. The other thing that's really important in our within our conservatory, within the theater school, is that with all of these different programs, we have guaranteed production practice. So in normal years, when we're not looking at COVID and how it's impacted all of us, we do over 30 productions each year, and every single major is involved in the production process in various different ways. So in year 1, all students do crew. In years 2, 3, and 4, you are working as assistant designers, you're performing, you're writing, you're doing all of the things. So looking at our application process, and this is very quick, so we are happy to answer questions more later, but in looking at how you go through the application process, we do accept the common application. So that's the way that you're going to start. You have to submit the common application before you're able to go through our audition and interview process, but you're not admitted to the university before you're considered for the theater programs. And that's going to vary depending on the programs that you're applying for. So it's really important to pay close attention to those application process details. For DePaul University, we are a test optional institution and have been for a long time. So if you don't want to submit your scores or you weren't able to take the standardized test this past cycle, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and click that test optional button on your application. We're going to require a letter or letters of recommendation depending on your major. And we do have a pre-screen for both our acting and our stage management programs. So those are going to be due by December 1st. There is a callback process for both of those. So for acting students, if you get called back, you're going to do a live Zoom audition this year, and those are going to happen in January and February. Stage management callbacks are going to be via a Zoom interview, and that's going to be the case for all of our other interviews outside of acting. You're going to participate in an interview process. The interview and audition is required in order to be considered for admission, so just pay close attention to that. I'm going to tell you that the best place to get all the details and information you could possibly need is going to be on our website. We're very, very specific. We have an option for you to talk to myself, my colleagues, and a live chat option called Unibuddy that you can talk to our current students. So when you're embarking on this process, I just will really encourage you to utilize all of those tools, get all of your questions answered, and don't be shy when it comes to asking those questions because it can be kind of complicated. Let's see, Andrew, go ahead and go to the next slide because I know otherwise I'm going to get too ingrained in all of the details. Great. So one thing that we want to focus on today is, what it takes to get into our different schools and in looking at BFA and BA programs across the country as you're starting to apply. And I think you're going to see some themes that are related as we each talk through our individual universities and our programs. So, we're thinking about getting into a theater school. What do I bring to it? And I think that's a big question. For us, there's many, I guess bullet points beyond what I just put here on this screen. But I think one of the number one factors we're going to consider, or I guess 1 and 2 are sort of equal, and in my mind, is your talent and your passion, right? And talent is clearly a subjective thing to say, right? Because talent is based on the eye of who is witnessing that talent. But for what, overall what we are really looking for is what experiences have you had so far and how have you grown and changed in those experiences over the years? And how has that now impacted you as a student and what you're going to bring to these programs? They are highly specialized programs, and so the passion that you bring to that particular area that you want to study is really going to shine through when you have that strong talent base. And I think that's really important. A thing I hear a lot from my colleagues who are, work in the audition and interview realm and from our current students in the program is that our faculty are really looking for the students who are going to come in and work hard and know that they have a base of knowledge, but that it's going to be a lot of work to build them up to the professional level of who they want to be in this field and really kind of finding your own personal identity within the world of theater. So, your commitment and passion to hard work is going to be quintessential in this process. We are also very ensemble based and we do a lot of collaborating. So in all those 15 different programs that I listed, you are constantly and continuously working together in the production process from the very beginning. And so it's going to be important that you're a team player and you're going to work together to make this a really collective, process for our productions. And I sort of touched on this again, but know what you know and be ready to learn. Because if you come in acting like you know everything, then why are you pursuing a BFA or a college degree for that matter in the first place? So really know that it's okay to be confident in what you do know, but be very, ready and willing to share that you have a lot to learn. And then we are at DePaul very committed to the mission of the institution, which is impacting our society and community for the better and really serving our communities. So we are looking for our students to come in and be change makers, to make a difference in this world, and in doing that through theater and your art and just who you are and what you can bring. Each of you is an individual, and together we create that ensemble and create some incredible theater and work beyond theater, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm probably right at about my time. So I'm going to pass it over to Andrew, and I look forward to answering some questions for you later on.
Thanks, Tracy. So Webster University, we are located in Webster Groves, Missouri, which is a residential suburb of St. Louis. So the university itself, we're a liberal arts university, so we have all those majors that you would expect a college to have. We have the sciences and business and communications, all those things, but the flagship program is the Conservatory of Theater Arts. We offer BA and BFA degrees. However, I will tell you the only BA degree that is offered is our directing program. Everything else is a BA. The directing program is a BA because really the expectation is to be a full, well-rounded director, you really need to go on and get that MFA at a minimum. And so that is a BA program there, but everything else is a BFA. Like Tracy mentioned at DePaul, we do break our programs up into the performance side of things and design tech. In performance, there are 3 programs: acting, directing, and musical theater. In the design tech areas, we have about 8 or 9 different individual BFA programs there. And I would say that's probably what sets us apart in all the schools here on the panel, that these are individual programs. A lot of times you'll run into schools where it's a general tech theater major, or it's general design tech, and maybe they'll encourage you to design your own major. But these are actually BFA degrees in these programs that you see here. In terms of our application audition procedure, like a lot of things, it has changed quite a bit this year. We used to not require a pre-screen for performance programs. Now we do. So we are a little bit different than what Tracy mentioned, in that you can certainly apply before you do the pre-screen, but really what we want you to do a pre-screen first, upload the pre-screen to Accepted, and then we will at that point decide if you are invited to attend a full audition. And then at that point, we would have you complete an application. Can you complete an application now? Sure, maybe you've already submitted one. That's totally fine. But as we're trying to manage just everything and the numbers and everything, the ideal kind of order of things would be to upload your pre-screen first, see if you pass the pre-screen, and then we'll go on to the full audition. The tech areas, that's a little bit more individualistic because the numbers aren't quite as overwhelming as they are in performance. Tech, we can still do kind of on an individual one-on-one basis. I did put the acceptance rates in there a bit reluctantly, but because a lot of people like to take that figure and run, but we get asked it all the time. So I did want to put it in there. There's a lot that goes with those, but I give you percentage, not numbers. Numbers can get kind of funny there because colleges typically have to accept more than they need, and then there's a wait list sometimes, and so it can get all a little messy there. So that's why I give you the percentages. The percentages of what you should really pay attention to. So what does it take to get into the Conservatory of Theater Arts? One thing you'll notice, we all listed talent first, right? Because you can have all these other things, but there needs to be a basis to work with, right? There needs to be something to start with. And so a lot of people ask, well, what is that? Or can you quantify that for us? And it's kind of hard to do. What I can tell you is the talent that we look for, it kind of flows out of a person naturally. I mean, when you're in the audition room, we can usually tell fairly quickly if you kind of have that base talent of something that we can work with. And there's nobody sitting there with a clipboard checking boxes that if you do this, 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 and this, you'll be admitted. I think that's sometimes what students think. You kind of want to game the system, right? What are they looking for? And that's what I'm going to give you. And it's never that easy, trust me. I've been in on dozens and dozens of auditions, and I remember one audition I was in, and the student gave what I thought was a pretty good audition, but then I asked the faculty about it, and they listed a number of things that were wrong with it right away. And one of them was this student, they were giving a very dramatic type of piece where the character was yelling at his father, and there's a lot of conflict going on. But they noticed that the whole time the student was slightly leaning back, and they had a closed posture, which is not what you would have for such a piece. So they picked up on that. I've also been in on a musical theater audition where the student will go through, do their audition, do their songs, And we'll maybe sometimes ask you to work on the pieces a little bit because that gives us a sense of talent and adaptability. And the only instruction they gave to this student was, we want you to sing your songs again, but when you're singing your songs, here's what we want you to do. We want you to sing less and tell the story more. Okay, that was the only instruction we gave. And they were like, well, what do you mean? Or can you be more specific? And we didn't want to be more specific. That was the instruction: sing less, tell the story more. And so a lot of that depends on what that student does with that prompt, so to speak. So, and there's dozens of little things that can be done in the process, but the point in all that is to say, there are these ways, there are these tiny exercises that we can do to kind of uncover what that talent is. We're big on ability to translate text to live performance. In a nutshell, what this means is, as you're reading the script, as you're reading the text, images and visualizations should pop up. And you should be able to tell us what those are going to be and what they're going to like. Can you take that text and turn it into visual imagery? Engagement with the material in its source, that's very important. You should just know everything about that character, everything about the play, and everything about the playwright. And so that it really is important for us as well too. You can't just live in your own little minute-and-a-half monologue and not know the rest of the context. A willingness to take direction. I imagine we're all going to tell you that in some fashion. And then a couple of surprises, a basic knowledge about Webster. One way to shoot yourself in the foot with us is to not know anything about us. You know, is if we ask you something, how did you hear about Webster? Do you know where we are? Do you know anything? And if they don't know anything, if you don't know anything about us, boy, that's a pretty big red flag. So even something as simple as that, you have to be curious, okay? We want to get the sense that you are curious. I mean, the arts is about the world we live in, how you fit into that world. And if you're not curious about the world around you, if you're not trying to understand how you fit into that world around you, that's sort of a problem for us. You need to be naturally curious about everything. And so that needs to come through as well too. And then passion, which Tracy mentioned as well too. You know, we need to get the sense from you that your life would be incomplete unless you could be on stage. Okay, that you know, your day would be incomplete unless you were doing something with design tech, or you were doing something to engage in your passion there. So, and again, that normally comes through kind of naturally. I mean, all these things that we're going over, they generally can't be faked, right? You might think you can fake it, but you really can't. And so, so all of none of these is really more important than the other, with the possible exception, like I said, there has to be a foundational talent level to work on. And for us, that's probably the most easy, that's the easiest thing for the faculty to assess, to be honest with you. It's all these other things that we sometimes struggle with. Sometimes the talent may be amazing, but we don't know if the self-discipline is there. We don't know if the work ethic is there. We don't know if they're going to be a good scene partner. You know, all these things that sometimes we struggle with, but we look at it as a package. And then in closing, the other thing I'll tell you too, just again, from my feedback that I've received over the years, I've had faculty tell me that sometimes during an audition, they're just simply asking themselves, is this someone I want to spend the next 4 years with? You know, is this someone that we can kind of connect with and is going to fit in with the current ensemble? So all of these moving parts are in play there. It's not a black or white process. Like I said, no one is sitting there with a clipboard checking boxes. If you do this, this, and this, it's all part of a very large process there. So that at least kind of gives you an idea of what we look for in this whole process there. And I will turn it over to Becca now to tell you a little bit about Roosevelt and what they're doing.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So Roosevelt University is a small private university located in downtown Chicago. Similar to my colleagues' institutions, Roosevelt is a conservatory program within a university. So really what that means is that you are getting a 4-year college degree. You're getting that BFA degree that will prepare you to do any number of things once you graduate. But you are getting to spend a good portion of your time. For us, it is about 90% of your time within the theater conservatory classes. Our theater students take one general education academic class each semester, and the rest are theater classes. So you really are getting to dive into your professional training and get ready for the industry. So for us, we are a great fit for students who know 100% they want to pursue theater. Because we're a conservatory, you are not able to double major. A minor is sometimes possible, but a double major is not possible. So I always like to be upfront about that going into this, because it is kind of the right path for students who know without a doubt this is what they want their future to be. We offer 3 different degrees. We have a BFA in acting, which is pretty straightforward. It's a BFA degree for students interested in pursuing stage and screen work. We have a BFA in musical theater, and we also have a BFA in musical theater with a dance concentration. So we're unique in that we have 2 different musical theater tracks and pathways. And really, I get this question a lot. What are the differences between the 2 programs? Really, the biggest difference is who they are designed for. So the regular musical theater program is designed for strong singers and actors who also dance or move, whereas the musical theater dance concentration program is designed for dancers who also sing and act. So it kind of depends on where you see yourself on the spectrum of singing, acting, and dance, where your training has been in the past, where you want to improve your skills. Both programs are BFAs in musical theater. They are both going to prepare you for a professional career in musical theater. It just kind of depends on what the format of your classwork would be. As far as performance opportunities within our program, we produce about 17 shows each year. So there are lots of performance opportunities on campus. We have a mix of full-length plays and musicals. We have some more experimental theater, new works, adaptations, some student-written work sometimes, kind of whatever the director is interested in producing that semester or season. Every show on campus is either directed by a faculty member or a professional director from the city of Chicago. So that's a really cool feature of our program, that regardless of what you're cast in, if you're in a main stage show or you're in something a little bit more experimental in our studio theater, everything is designed to be a really great educational opportunity for you and a really great networking opportunity for you in addition. As far as our application and audition process, ours is quite similar to Webster and DePaul's. The first step for us is to fill out the Roosevelt University undergraduate application. We are not on the Common App, so it is its own application, but it's pretty straightforward. Won't take you too terribly long to complete. Along with your application, we need your transcript. We will need your 2 letters of recommendation. And this year we are test optional as well. So if you haven't been able to take the SAT or the ACT, do not stress it. But if you'd like to send in your scores, you definitely can do that. The deadline for that application is December 1st. Once that initial application is submitted, you'll get instructions on how to submit your pre-screen. For us, we use a website called Get Accepted. A lot of schools use it, so you'll be a pro at it by the end of this year. But that is where you'll submit your pre-screen materials. We do require a pre-screen for the acting and the musical theater programs. And the deadline for that is also December 1st. And then if you pass the pre-screen, we will be doing virtual live auditions in January and February. So we will not be doing any in-person auditions this year, but they will be live auditions in which you are able to interact with our faculty members via a digital platform. So we're trying to recreate a live in-person audition as much as humanly possible. And we can move on to the next slide, please. So what are we looking for? What does it take to get into the Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt University? As my colleague said, talent. That is a big one. That kind of goes without saying. But the fact of the matter is that most people applying to these programs, these BFA programs, are going to have some base level of talent. There are a lot of talented people out there in the world and in the theater industry. So for us, we kind of look at it as talent and, meaning what else do you have and what else can set you apart. So for us, one of the big pieces is confidence in who you are and what makes you unique as a performer and a person. So we are not filling type quotas in our program. We are more so looking for interesting actors, interesting performers that we want to invite into our ensemble of actors. So it's not so much about coming in and fitting a mold and being exactly what you think we want to see. Instead, it's about embracing what makes you different and bringing that to the table. So choosing pieces that you're comfortable in, choosing pieces that you feel like represent you, and being sure that the faculty can get to know you throughout the audition process. The ability to collaborate and play well with others is a huge piece to this puzzle too. Like my colleagues said, faculty members are looking for people that they want to work with for 4 years. We are a very ensemble-based program, and that our students are constantly working together, constantly working as a team and collaborating. So we just want to make sure that everybody that is being invited into the Roosevelt community shares that same spirit of collaboration. A passion for theater's role in social justice is a little bit unique. Roosevelt University was founded on the mission of social justice. So everything that we do within the Theater Conservatory is kind of rooted in that, directly or indirectly. So not only is it about performing a monologue or a song to the best of your ability and really nailing it, it's about what is that piece saying about the world? What does that mean about the world around you? And how is it impacting your audience members? In addition, a willingness to try new things and take direction. You might be given feedback in your audition. Our faculty members might stop you. They might ask you questions. They might give you a note and ask you to try something again. Being open and being flexible and being willing to try something different is huge. We want to make sure that students are kind of open to feedback and open to growth. So by asking them those questions, by seeing how they react to adjustments, that's kind of a big gauge of who might be a good fit for the program. And then the last part is pretty self-explanatory, but preparation. You should be so comfortable with your pieces that you could do them in your sleep. Throughout the college audition process, you'll perform your pieces a lot. So typically this isn't a problem, but you just want to be so prepared that it's the last thing on your mind is what the lines to your monologue are. You want to be able to show your best self through all of your pieces and really present your strongest audition. So I will go ahead and throw it back to Andrew, who will take us into the next section of our panel.
Excellent, thanks, Becca. So now we want to move into kind of a panel discussion. Again, some Q&A if you want to throw a question in the Q&A box. I think we covered talent pretty well here because all three of us talked about it. We did touch a little bit on what else besides talent is being evaluated. Tracy, is there anything else, particularly with DePaul, other than the talent that's being evaluated? I believe you touched on it a little bit, but are there any of these kind of intangibles that should be emphasized?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important to note. So when we're doing our admission process, you know, as I mentioned, you apply first through the common application, then you go through the audition and interview process. But then when it comes to the conclusion of the audition interview season, my team and I then get recommendations from the faculty on who they would like to have considered for admission. And then we do what we call the merit review. So that's when we actually come back and look at your application information, your letters of recommendation, your extracurriculars, all of that stuff. So I think, you know, particularly for us, it's a holistic review process, and it's a multi-step process. And the great thing about that is, you know, when we're looking at your talent and your merit and how that all fits together, we're really want to be confident that you're going to be academically successful because you're pursuing a really rigorous curriculum that requires a lot of hours. And so just being able to demonstrate that you can put in those, you know, 11-hour days, 6 days a week sometimes, depending on where you are in the production process and cycle, is going to be really important. And then second to that, when we're examining you for merit and talent and making our admissions decision, we actually are also evaluating you for scholarships. And so all of our students who get admitted do receive a scholarship that is guaranteed part of your process. So it is really a multifaceted process, even though for you, from your side, it doesn't always feel that way.
Yeah, and you know, one thing you touched on there, besides, you know, what else besides talent is being evaluated, we do get the question quite a bit. I know I get it, I'm sure you do too, and that is, can talent overcome an academic record where it may not be quite what you're looking for or a little bit below your standards? That is a very common question. Becca, do you want to talk about how that process works? If it's a factor, how it works, that whole thing?
Sure. So in our process, we are primarily focused on the audition and how that goes, but we do look at academics as well. Like Tracy said, as kind of an indication on whether or not a student would be successful in such a rigorous environment. So when it comes to students being slightly under what our typical GPA requirement would be, we do have a little bit of flexibility in that because we are a conservatory program and more is going into this process than just your audition or just your grades. But I will say that when it comes down to two students who might be equally as talented and maybe both had amazing auditions, but one has slightly better grades, our faculty may be more inclined to go in that direction, just because that's kind of a way to delineate the two students.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, sort of a way to break the tie, and I would say Webster kind of leans towards that as well too. The stronger the academic profile of the student, that kind of tells them this person's level of discipline, focus, finishing what you start, understanding process, et cetera, et cetera. So I would tell you that is the way it is with us too. Tracy, anything to add with that, with DePaul, or how you guys handle that?
Yeah, very similar in that we do a very holistic application review. And so, talent is going to be, arguably the most impactful on our decision-making process. But, what I take into consideration is if you had a tough year in there and there's an explanation behind why that happened and you've been able to show persistence and improving, since that happened, that's very helpful in explaining, the whole picture. And so I think that's what's really valuable when you're considering filling out your application, whether it's Common App or a school application. There's often a section of, explain, is there anything that you need to explain further about your academic record, or use your personal statement to maybe highlight a little bit about what's been going on in your life. And so, it's up to you and your comfort level, how you feel and what you want to share, but it is helpful on our side to get to know the bigger picture of you and see that you really can overcome challenges.
And related to, with kind of how are acceptance decisions made, Becca brought up a good point about, types. And some schools, are they looking for certain types? And how is that part of the process as well too? I know there are some schools out there who will tell you straight up, look, we're looking for, 4 male leads, 4 female leads, 4 male characters, 4 female character actors, and then on down the line. And so maybe if you could touch on how you handle it. I know for Webster, it's similar, I think, to what Becca said. We're looking for the kind of the best incoming class. We don't get too heavily into the types there, or we already have that type of person. But for us, it's really about kind of the ensemble and who's going to fit with the current ensemble student. Do either one of you kind of want to talk about your school's approach to, and if type factors in at all?
Go ahead, Tracy. Great. Like that's unmute at the same time. Great. So yeah, we don't have like a list of boxes we need to check off in regards to, all the qualifications the student needs to have. And so it is so much, again, I think about creating that ensemble, who's going to collaborate well. When it comes to our acting pool, I will say that we tend to try to strive to achieve a gender balanced pool, but that is very fluid based on gender identity. And so there's not, again, one set like this, we need one, cis white male to fill this spot, and on and on and on. So I think that, it's good to not get caught up in, I may not get in because I am this particular person, and or so many people from my high school apply and they're only going to take so many. That's not often the case either. I will say that, there's been years we've admitted multiple students from the same high school for the acting program or the other programs, and years that nobody from those high schools have been admitted. So just, I guess my advice, or the point I'm trying to make, is don't get too much in your head and trying to figure out what we want. Just apply if it's a school that you're interested in, because you'll never know unless you try. And Becca, feel free to add on.
You took the words out of my mouth. But I was just going to add that for us, at least, we are always striving to create or kind of piece together the most diverse ensemble we can. So while we're not filling types, we're also looking for different types of people, different body types, different ethnicities, kind of runs the gamut. We want a class that kind of represents and is as diverse as the city that we are in and the country that we are in. So really the sky's the limit there. And I echo what Tracy said about not getting caught up in what you think your type is or what you think schools want to see. Most people applying to these conservatory type programs are 17 or 18 years old. Your type is going to change. So much about you is going to change in college. So don't get stressed out about that. All you can do is present the best you can at this present moment.
Excellent, excellent. And the next bullet point and the 3 sub-points under that are all kind of related. So I do want to spend a little bit of time on that because, again, this comes up quite a bit as well too, because we see the gamut, right? We see somebody who's been acting since they were 4 and does local commercials and voiceover work and all that, and they've had private instruction and all this. But then you have someone from maybe a small rural high school who doesn't have much of a theater program, and they are really worried that is working against them. Tell us what the advice might be there, and to kind of how to approach that. And it obviously comes into play for some schools. Let's not kid ourselves, right? But talk about the perspective that students and parents should keep on this. Go ahead, Becca.
Yeah. So for us, we are looking at the student's background on a holistic level, knowing that not everybody has access to the same arts opportunities, or some people just found theater later in life, and that's great. So we're not concerned about a giant list of 3 pages of a resume. We're looking to see some level of commitment to this craft, whether it was 2 years ago that you started or 10 years ago. But we're looking to see that you have dedicated at one level or another some amount of yourself to this, just so we can kind of see your commitment level. But it's really about making the best of the resources that you have at your disposal. So, you know, if you go to a really small high school that doesn't have many theater opportunities, what have you done? Is there something that you have been able to kind of create an extracurricular activity? Is there something that you have been able to kind of change within the school to create opportunities for yourself? So don't be self-conscious about coming from a small school or not having a lot of theater training. We're just looking for that kind of base level commitment.
Yeah, and I'll just add into that, that yes, and to all of that, I want to reemphasize that we get people from just so many different backgrounds and experiences. And I think particularly this year, for many of you, it might feel more nerve-wracking because a lot of your junior year theater opportunities disappeared or evolved into something completely different from what you were anticipating. And we're going to take that into consideration as well. So if you're one of those students who didn't discover theater till, end of sophomore year, last year, and you don't feel like you have a lot to bring to the table, you do. You just have to showcase what you've done in using your creativity over this past year, in light of everything that's happening. We're all in the same boat, right? Just operating from different experiences and places in life. So be confident in what you're bringing to the table. We've had actors be admitted who just discovered acting, within the last year. We've had, just like Andrew said, people who've been doing this since they were 4 or 5 years old. And I think, that's what is the beauty of this whole industry, is that when you have talent and you have that passion, then you're going to find your place ultimately. And the same thing with our designers and our students in theater studies. My favorite story, or one of my favorite students I've ever admitted, served in the military for a number of years, got out and got married, and then said, I want to get a BFA in acting. And he's been very successful in the program, very talented actor. And, so you just never know where people are going to be coming from. And that's, again, really the beautiful part of this whole picture. And Andrew, I'm sure you have other things to add on too.
Yeah, I would certainly add that don't get overwhelmed or intimidated by this. I think there's like, oh my goodness, look at this, look at that resume this person has, and they obviously have done this before, and I haven't. You know, I think we would all tell you there is such a thing as having too much experience, as crazy as that sounds, because you think you know it all already, and maybe you're not as willing to take direction. And my vocal coach didn't do it this way. So our antenna is up for that as well too. So really someone who has raw talent and is rough around the edges and only half kiddingly will believe anything we tell them, we sort of like those folks, right? I mean, because they're just kind of this, you know, raw, kind of ready to be trained person. So we can like that. And so again, you really should not overthink this too much. In terms of that, this is what we do. We're able to spot that talent. That's usually the easiest part of this process, right? So don't get too carried away with that. In terms of that direct question, attending an arts-focused high school, we get that a lot. The only thing I would tell you with that is yes, it's noticed. I mean, because it's on the transcript, it's kind of hard to miss. The only thing I would tell you with that is the one thing it does tell us is that, you know, a student who's come from an arts-focused high school, perhaps they've already cleared one talent bar, so to speak, because most of the time you have to audition to get into the arts high school. So in the back of the mind, say, okay, they've kind of done this, but again, they still got to go through all those other things. Again, we have denied amazingly talented people because they don't have all these other things. So it's not just that one, you know, one factor there. So again, don't overthink it too much there.
With that being said, we unfortunately are out of time. So we wanted to, you know, thank our presenters this evening and just reassure everyone that this session will be available to you to watch. You will get a quick survey at the end of this, but please continue to sign up for more sessions with IACAC. And thank you again to our presenters. You guys have done a wonderful job tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much.